Right. Do we have apologies for absence?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologies for absence from Councillor Emma Blackmore.
Do we need a resolution on accepting that apology?
Yes, please.
I propose we accept her apology.
I'll second it, yeah.
Right, declaration of councillors' interests. To declare any interest relating to the business of the meeting and receive any dispensation requests from the town clerk under the Localism Act 2011, sections 29 to 34. I will kick off by stating that I have no interest to declare that I am aware of.
I'm not aware of.
None that I'm aware of.
None that I am aware of.
None that I'm aware of.
Good. Right. Public participation relating to meeting agenda items. Have we had any questions submitted in advance?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Good.
Very
There are no
professional.
members of the public
I don't get
present.
called Mr. or Sir or
This is very different to the last
King.
one.
yeah.
Complaining.
Well,
Next item, minutes of the last meeting. To consider and approve the minutes of the meeting held on 20 September 2023 as a true and accurate record, as attached in the agenda papers. Does anyone have any points they wish to raise in respect of those minutes? I cannot do so because I was not present at that meeting.
ditto.
I was there and I think they're a fair record.
I wasn't here, so yeah.
Then I propose that we accept the minutes of the last meeting as a true record. All those in favour? Who has to sign them?
You do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
No, I don't know. I'm sorry. Thank you, Wendy. Can I call you Madam Clerk?
This was ridiculous.
Where do I sign? On the last page? Look.
Initially, then sign on the last.
I've got a new agenda often coming in January for the meeting as well. Normally called new names.
You'll get the opportunity to propose.
Yeah, I think, all right, I'm going to choose them all for you. Whatever for you. Right.
There we are, Madam Chair. Sorry, Madam Clerk. I do apologise. Right, item 6, to receive the Chairman's verbal update report. 6.1, current budget 23-24, currently close to budget predictions, it says in the agenda papers. In fact, we are doing far better than the budget led us to expect. The full year budget is for a deficit of 142,000. We are actually showing a surplus of 40,000 up to November. And our rough and ready forecasts indicate that we will be closer to break even by the end of the year. I therefore regard the position as being wholly satisfactory. Does anyone wish to raise any issues in respect of the current year's financial position?
I'm not arguing your figures.
Not from me, Madam Chairman.
No.
Can I, on behalf of the committee, thank you for all your hard work that you've been doing on this
Steady on.
matter.
Blushes.
He's done an okay job.
Thank you.
Very good job.
Don't apologise, throw money.
I won't. What's wrong with that?
Right,
Gary.
item 6.2, moving on. Budget process for 24-25. I think we are all fully au fait with where we have reached in our discussions.
Mhm.
We are very close to having a final version of the budget. We await North Somerset's estimate of the number of Band D properties, which is due any day now.
Due. It's way overdue, isn't it, officially?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
It's waiting for government though, isn't it? The government have to set it and then set the figure, and then North Somerset can advise you what the figure is against the Band D, isn't it, effectively?
I don't know how the mechanics work,
I think so, yeah.
but
It's a well-oiled machine, obviously.
I'm sure it is, but it seems to be creaking a little bit.
WD-40 out of stock.
Right. So far as I'm concerned, the budget process has worked smoothly enough. We are on schedule. Does anyone have any issues they wish to raise?
No, just kind of one comment. You will be all getting an email. We are going to have one final meeting posed for the 8th of January in the folk hall at 7:30 p.m. please, Madam Boss. If we can, it's just literally.
Please.
I get told off now and again. Nothing there. We get told off at home as well. So,
The only person who knows what she's doing.
well, that's a little bit below the belt though. We'll let that one slip tonight because it's nearly Christmas. But no, on a serious point, we will literally, and it's just all about kind of making sure that we're all ready for the following week. We've all agreed. We know where we're going, the trajectory. So it's just kind of just to refresh everyone's brains, and it's just the final presentation that's just been tweaked since the last meeting. Last week before last. So yeah, that's all it is. So just watch out for an email coming out. If you can you whiz that out, Wendy, just a meeting invite for Monday the 8th of January, 7:30 p.m. for an hour and a half in here, please. Which we'll be ready then for the meeting on the 16th.
Right. I would add one point in relation to the budget. In the last draft which I circulated, there were a number of items highlighted in pink in the forecast column for costs. Those do not look as if they are consistent with the November year-to-date spend, and I would appreciate comments on each of those.
Yeah.
It's basically a question of whether the spend that's in the forecast is actually going to happen, or whether the spend that's in November supersedes in the forecast.
I've looked at it now. We've got November's figures in. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll come back to you after Christmas though, obviously.
Well, fine, no problem.
Can make it the 9th, could you?
Otherwise, I'll make my own rough and ready assumptions.
Give me a second. Yeah, we could. It's all right. The reason I say, yeah, we could, is because the agenda's obviously got to go out to the meeting. The meeting is the Tuesday the 16th, not the usual Wednesday. So we've got to have 3 clear working days. As long as we issue the minutes are ready to go on the 10th, we can get them out then, can't we? I know we've got an extra day, but I'm just building in some room. So are the people in this room then happy with Tuesday the 9th at 7:30 p.m. instead of Monday the 8th? I can at the moment, so.
Well, much appreciated. I have a good aim of Civic Society at Somerset Hall on the 8th.
I can do either.
9th. Is that all right for you?
Brilliant.
You can be remote if you wish to, that's not a problem. Paul,
Thank you.
I'm good, yep.
David,
Just checking my calendar, but I think so.
I know there's a few others not, but just roll with it.
And one other point occurs to me. What do you think ought to be included in the agenda papers for that council meeting, the full council meeting?
I'll be sorting that with Wendy. But I'll talk
In
to you.
particular,
Yeah.
in regard to the budget.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about that.
We'll deal with that later then.
Yeah.
Okay.
We won't issue a lot,
I
obviously.
would suggest that we either issue the presentation because everyone's going to see it, or we just issue a one-pager summary of income and expenditure.
My thought process is it's just a one-pager. I don't want anything getting out for the meeting. Obviously, I want to just be discussed for everybody in the meeting. It's only
That's
fair.
fine. It's one of the pages which is already set up in the budget model.
We'll sort it out. Yeah.
Okay, right, moving on. Item 7, HR policy review. Madam Clerk was kind enough to circulate a guaranteed cure for insomnia.
David passed it with a plum, so you have got a gold star, sir.
David gets to go for having
information.
I fell asleep at paragraph 2. Well, nearly fell asleep anyway. Mrs. said, what are you reading? Not really.
I must confess I feel somewhat disturbed at getting 80 or 90 pages of, let's call it verbiage.
You're obviously very good, David, at going through this sort of
It's a
stuff.
lot to read, a lot to digest.
It's a short.
How do people want to proceed? Do we You want to consider each policy separately this evening?
For me, we just wrap them all into one,
I think so. I think,
unless I think we go through them, but otherwise wrap them into
I
one.
think we,
I
For
feel
me-
confident with David's expertise and having gone through it, and I confess, yes.
I think unless there's a specific one that somebody's got questions on.
There's a couple that just need slight clarification, aren't there, David, which I can get sorted out.
And I haven't got personnel expertise, so to spare it, I was
Exactly, I need to speak to the HR.
And David's email was extremely comprehensive.
Yeah.
I mean, the first off the bat, yes, a lot of pages, but actually it's pretty much generally clear and it's understandable and makes sense, completely logical. So thank you for that. But again, obviously on a serious note, obviously David's comments again were greatly appreciated, you know.
Absolutely.
So yeah, not a problem at all.
Okay, I do have a couple of queries. The employee privacy notice, should we have a councillor privacy notice? Do we have one already?
There
What
is-
data is actually held in respect of councillors?
Yes, there is a version of it which would have been sent out when you became councillors. But now that we have an updated version of the employee one, we can make sure that the councillor one is, what's the word, aligned to that as well. So we will review it in line with the GDPR policies as well.
Okay, and the mental health policy, one of the items it requires managers to complete a survey of the mental health needs of their staff. I would suggest that you have to be a trained psychologist to do that, and our managers, well, most managers are not. I just don't think that's at all realistic.
You can do surveys.
Unless someone's actually screaming and climbing up the wall, I'm not sure how you could.
There are very standardised survey questions, PHQ-9, GAD-7, that assess levels of anxiety and well-being. That you don't need to be a huge expert, but my sense, my response to Wendy was that we're too small an organisation to do this on a confidential basis.
We are, certainly.
And then surely there's a question around how the responses to that are interpreted.
Yeah.
Because how I would interpret a response to a question, and Ben and John and yourself would probably all be different.
I think it has to be taken on a case by case basis, isn't it? And you have to assess the case as it comes at you. So if it seems to be on the face of it fairly straightforward, then okay, fine. If it feels a bit more deeper and there's something else going on that you can't get to the bottom of, then we bring in an expert or refer them to an expert, and we very politely pass the book to an expert and make sure that we ultimately it's about their welfare. You know, we need to make sure that we're dealing and looking after their welfare as best we possibly can as a responsible employer. So it's all we can do, and it has to be on a case by case basis.
And I think also it is an interpretation of the law, as is most things to do with legal. There is a duty upon the employer to be aware of mental health issues with their staff. But if you read the way the policy is written, there is also a duty on the employee to ensure that the employer is aware that there is an issue. So I think what they're talking about with doing the surveys is a standard survey that is done should an issue arise. And that's how I've always interpreted this policy since it came in. It hasn't actually been in place for very long as a law, but it is treading with care and just being aware as an employee and employer that there can be issues, and it's not always clear cut. I think that's just the point that the policy is making, and we all have to be aware of it.
Having gone through something like this from an accident I had, I did get bumped straight to specialist assistants, so they didn't have a clue where to go with me. So yeah, the fact that I lasted not even half a day back at work on my return day to work, and I got out and quit there and then I walked away. But thank you very much, but no thank you. Yeah, I didn't have a clue what to do. So you have to refer this kind of thing to an expert. We've got a duty to do it. So I think again, it goes with the point. As a you know, bit responsible employer, we look at it, we ask the questions, and then
We know we have
know,
got the
yeah.
specialist.
we pass it to the expert.
I'd be interested to hear what the personnel group that's advising
Absolutely.
say about this.
Can we take that one up with?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Query on the leave policy. I think it says somewhere that part-time employees are only entitled to a pro rata statutory holiday allowance. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And what happens the rest of the, take a half-time person, what happens halfway through a statutory holiday day?
The way that it is done is that if the part-time person doesn't normally work on a bank holiday, for instance, they don't accrue that holiday. If their working day does fall on that bank holiday, it is generally accepted practice that the employee must request that bank holiday day as leave, and then that is accounted for. The way that it's done here is that even myself as a full-timer, I have to apply for my bank holiday leave. It's all included in my leave allocation, and I have to apply to take it.
Do we have to be so bureaucratic?
Bank holidays are not, they are discretionary. You don't, as an employer, have to give bank holidays as leave. So it's one of those weird ones. Most people do, but it isn't
I've never had one refused.
statutory. Yeah.
Anyone dare? We get the least amount in most of
I've
the world
had to
anyway.
work bank holidays before.
I've not worked them, but that was through my choice. Then I get it off as a day somewhere else. But yeah,
Exactly.
it's a choice thing. But anyone trying to take one off me, there'd be a hell of an argument.
Okay, one more query from me. Flexible work, leave policy. Leave for public duties. Can you confirm that that includes things like territorial army service?
I can't confirm for sure, but it is something that the council would have to have a policy on. I'm not sure that we actually have a policy on what we would deem as statutory duties. It would normally be something like jury service, etc., etc.
Yes, it's not statutory, it's voluntary, but it is in the public interest.
But that's probably covered in our green book. I can check that one.
What would that normally entail? I mean, it could entail a few days, couldn't it?
Could be several days a year, certainly.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, I've never been in the TA, but
No, likewise. Yeah.
We generally have a certain number of training days a year, don't we?
Yes.
And then some we go off on. Normally go
Yeah.
for about a week on manoeuvres. Manoeuvres
But
being
there's
drinking
probably
heavily
an
at the
element
pub.
of expecting them to sacrifice some of the normal annual leave. But equally, I think
I
it's
don't think you can.
appropriate.
I worked with a colleague who was part of it, and he go away for 2 weeks of a year, and I think it was paid for by the company totally as a separate outside of his holiday allowance. Because they can't. I don't think you can say no.
I think it's normal
I
that
think-
if you're in an organisation like that, you have to let your employer know
Yes.
that there are
That's
certain
the-
It's
times.
a commitment to
Employment,
disclose
yeah.
before you're recruited.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a choice they make, but I think ultimately they can't say no. It's my understanding of it.
As
Don't
you've
think
got
you
some
double check every
examples in the procedure, so the policy. Can you include that one or at least check its validity? Okay. And then more queries from me.
I've got one query, so I'm just, I've gone through it again. Hybrid working. The header, applications for hybrid working from the town clerk. And it reads, in the event that the town clerk requests a period of hybrid working, This will be considered by the vice chairman of the council.
Something that David brought up, that we ought to have somebody else.
Add
As
two
well
people.
as 2 people.
So someone from this committee and the
Yes.
vice chair or chair.
The reason being, Ben, is that if I appeal against it, my appeal has to go to the chairman.
Ah, so that's, I didn't know, okay, fine.
That's why. That's why. All right, it's not. Because I haven't got anybody higher to go to, so my appeal has to go to the chairman. So I have to have somebody else to prove it if I
He's
win.
declined.
Thanks.
No, that's fine. It didn't kind of, I read the, so yeah, I think the point is, I think, yeah, we need to, I think it goes to the point what we're trying to do, isn't it? We're doing it differently, and actually we want other people from other committees or generally other councils involved in these things, because ultimately, then if it comes down to, unfortunately, me having to make the final decision, at least we've then gone through the due process, and actually as a staff member or a councillor, depending on what the scenario is, you actually feel like you've been listened to and you've had a followed through a proper process and a fair process. Depending on what the outcome is, you may agree or disagree with it, but actually by that point it doesn't matter as long as you followed a due process and it's been done properly, and you feel like you actually had your say.
Yeah.
And it's been done with respect and so on and so on. So yeah, that's fine. Just come to, yeah, probably add with a word in and probably 2 other councillors.
Yeah.
Which will be handpicked by, well, probably by the vice chair then, because obviously there'll be just, you know, I mean, one you go to is you, obviously, absolute slam dunk no-brainer, but every time, and maybe for punishment, John, but in a bad boy tonight. John has messaged me saying.
He's trying to endear himself with the clerk. And he is, yeah.
Most important person here. The council could manage without us.
Yeah, so yeah, just add that bit of wording in. And I think otherwise I'm kind of fine with it. I don't know issue with your comments, no issue with your comments. I think they're all valid comments, so. Yeah.
So there were a couple of issues in my comments where Wendy came back saying it needed council agreement. I think the issues I raised that we didn't resolve were, first of all, whether hybrid working could include, as well as home working from somewhere else. Say a spouse was working overseas for a period of time,
Yes.
and so their partner wanted to accompany them and work from overseas. It's a bit far-fetched, maybe. And maybe, I mean, on reflection, I think we should probably leave it as it is for now and just deal with exceptions as they.
So exception to the rule, I think we have to case on case by case basis, because that the problem is you can't. How can you okay, how can you control someone's working from home anyway? You can't. You've got to take their word they're doing. Trust that the work that's coming out is still as good as what it is in the office, per se. But I think abroad is even harder to kind of control, isn't
So
it?
I think maybe a sentence saying, you know, in other circumstances, it would need to be dealt with on a
Case by case basis, yeah.
Second issue was about leave time for bereavement. It struck me that I think it's 2 or 3 days leave for loss of a spouse, loss of a child, loss of a parent. It's just ridiculously
Not enough.
too little. But and the same duration of leave for the loss of an uncle or aunt, I think, you know, just seems a little bit disproportionate. But Wendy's feedback was that is what's enshrined in the law. So
But it's at the discretion.
It's
of the
discre- it is,
council
yeah, I mean,
whether
yeah,
you
yeah.
want to give
Yeah, I
it
think
your policies.
from a very personal perspective, I was off when our child died. I was off work for 6 weeks, and then I was phased back to work after that for another 4 weeks. After they made me take a week's holiday, by the way, just to clarify that. They asked me, well, on the day after he died, why aren't you into work today? I'm not going to repeat what I said. But I think we should write it as a separate paragraph and say, if it is a child bereavement, I know it's coming from me, wrong person probably, but I think there should be a special allowance for it because it isn't normal, and you don't deal with it like you would an adult. It sounds really silly to say, doesn't it? But you deal with it with an adult a bit easier because actually, hopefully, they've had a bit of a life. But when you lose a child, it's a different battle.
Yes,
And I think
I
it's not
understand
just, there's a lot that goes around it. So I think we should have that as a separate paragraph that it will be considered on a case by case basis. But I personally, whether you all agree, I think we should write in a minimum amount of time off will be given of 4 weeks as an example. You will get given 4 weeks off.
In the case of child.
Yeah, straight off the bat, because there's a lot you have to go through. It's not quite so straightforward.
Although some parents might not wish to take
But,
it.
but if they don't
If
have
it's
to.
there,
But if
they
it's
need
there and they wish to take it, they can
Right.
take it up to 4 weeks. Then on that, it will be line manager discretion with discussions with chair, vice chair of the council. But again, we'd all be very sensible about the approach. And also, again, my opinion is because it worked for me, is the phased return to work. You don't just come back and boom. It's do it as a staged process, but in agreement with the individual or individuals. Is what I would propose.
And of course, people can get medical certification.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
top of that, but
Yeah.
but I think having that minimum is very sensible. I'd also argue that for parents and spouses, you know, maybe not that duration of time, but something more than 3 days seems. 3 days just seems such a.
It's
small
not
amount of
enough, is
time.
it? No, it's not enough. No.
So what do you suggest, that we make it 5?
Week at least, and then discretionary.
I would support a week.
Okay, I go with a
Such
week.
close
Yeah.
relatives, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Parents,
So spouse
grandparents.
and parents. A week.
So we're talking for, I mean, 5 days is a week, isn't it? Because you're not going to be working on the weekends anyway. But a week is possibly interpreted as being 7 days, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd name it as 7 days, actually. Yeah, it's a good point. Name it as 7 days, 7 working days. Be quite clear with it. And then effectively, so it's your, husband, wife. Well, let's just put spouse,
And
actually.
what about tweaking as you mentioned, David, the uncles, aunts, nephews and nieces?
But I think that's statutory. When you
Ah,
say so,
right.
Yeah,
I don't think we can reduce that.
we're just talking about spouse and
And for this
parents.
Okay.
purpose, children, etc., includes stepchildren.
I think so.
Yeah, because they're family.
They are family.
Written into law when you on the certificates, isn't it?
Am I the only person sitting around the table that objects to the term passing away? People die, they don't pass away, in my view.
Agreed.
Yeah, just be clear.
I think it's softer. I don't disagree with you. I just think it's a softer way than dead. But
To me, it's an Americanism, I don't like it.
so
Well, at least they're not crossing the Rainbow Bridge.
Haven't heard that one.
Sorry,
Hmm?
I was going to say the last issue I raised, I think, was about miscarriage, and allowing some time for that as well.
I think that personally comes under child bereavement, quite frankly. I really do.
Could I make my comment on an amendment? Does it get support?
Yeah. What from?
That we remove
Passing away, you
passing
mean?
away and put
Yeah.
died.
Yeah, I have no issue with it. Yeah. So just to clarify, we're in agreement that if there is a miscarriage, then that individual will get the same rights as they'll get the 4 weeks
Is
if they
that
choose to.
after a certain term though.
I think 4 weeks is probably a bit, I don't know.
I think you have to. I get your point, because obviously I can't say too much here. It's really hard because if you lose one child fairly early on, okay, it bloody hurts. But actually, you do kind of pick yourself back up. If you've lost 4 or 5 fairly early on, and then another one when we did, it isn't a pleasant experience, and you really don't pick yourself up very quickly at all. I genuinely believe, I know I may be being, because it's a very personal thing for me, obviously, and the wife, but I think we just have to be fair with it and say, look, we'll be fair with you. If it looks just fair with how you're feeling about how you're dealing with this, and then we can take it on that. So it's not necessarily going to get 4 weeks, but come and talk to us. We'll have a conversation and then go from there. I think we have to deal with it properly because it's not easy. I think so, yeah. I think so, yeah. So we have to be fair.
Because it does it, and there is keep on it. I know it's a difficult subject to discuss, but you know, we had a foster child who passed away very sadly, but you get nothing. You get no time off for a foster child because they assume that they're not your child. The fact that the foster child had lived with us for 8 years,
Mhm.
you know, but you still get nothing. And yeah, so I think for me it has to be a case by case basis that we.
But that's not mentioned on the list, is it? Foster children.
No,
It's
but
got adopted children, but not
but it-
foster children.
Yeah, but it never does. And
Oh.
it doesn't refer to kinship either.
It's your policy. If you want to put that in.
We can name
I
it.
think-
put
I think
I
we
have no
should.
issue with it being named at all, no.
Yeah, I think we
I
should.
know I'm
I think-
biased, but
I think as long as for me, I think as long as there's an understanding that each individual case would be considered.
it's a case by case basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
We have to be fair, we have to be consistent, and it's a really touchy subject for a lot of people in different ways, like you say. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Like-
I know touchy is not the right word, I know, but
No,
it's the way I describe it, it's the best way I can describe it.
but like you say, with the miscarriage, you know, there's a question around term. With yeah, there's a whole heap of questions,
Yeah.
aren't there?
Problem with dealing with things on a case by case basis is that you're liable to generate inconsistencies without noticing it.
Well,
But then everybody's different. isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, it's a totally different beast, it's a really hard beast to grapple with. So I think if we keep it there, everyone agrees here, and then the relevant people that would talk to the individual will be duly selected
Yeah.
on a case by, again, we go back to that word again, case by, because you may not want to be involved in the discussion. I know some of them may come back to me, if I'm still chair of this council, obviously, I may not have a choice, but I would take it in the best way I could, and I'd be fair with it. So, you know, it's about being open and being honest, that's all it is.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Okay.
On that note, are we all happy with everything else?
Are we in a state where we can recommend or not recommend according to
Recommend with
taste?
amendments.
Well, David had a great list of amendments, which I was trying to flag up, but I can't find them any longer on my phone. Or do you think they're covered? Most of them,
Wendy's response, yeah.
and some of which have already gone into this, have they?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, they haven't.
No, they haven't gone into
Not
this,
yet.
but we've talked about them this evening.
So we
and
can,
Clarified.
The response only came in,
Yeah, but there were lots
Sorry.
more. Surely there were quite a number.
Wendy's replied.
Wendy's replied this
one
afternoon.
Because he hasn't seen them.
Oh, okay,
I think you were copied in Michael, maybe you weren't.
I'm not sure. Yes, I think I have. Yeah.
came in this afternoon, didn't it?
Yeah,
So I saw it come in,
sorry,
so yeah, I've seen it
yeah.
come in and read it, so. Yeah,
Right. So some of those amendments have already been.
They've not been
Thank
pushed
you.
to the documents, no.
No.
More than happy if you prefer them to come back to the next staff and finance to clarify before sending to council.
I have no issue with
We
David's
know-
comments, I have no issue with your responses.
I've got no issue with any of the proposed amendments raised here.
No.
I would be happy to support recommending them to council after making the appropriate amendments.
and seeking a bit of advice from personnel on the issues we talked about.
Yes.
To cover the issues, yeah. As long as that's worded to the recommendation that pending amendments to wording which we've agreed tonight, and pending further professional advice on a couple of the items, these will be proposed to be agreed. And then they'll come in, so,
Recommended to full council
Yeah.
for approval.
Okay, would anyone like to propose the motion that we accept these subject to the discussed amendments and process changes?
Yes, I'm happy to do.
Okay, Mike and David, seconded. Voting, all those in favour?
Wonderful, thank you so much.
Thank Wendy for all her hard work putting them together.
Yeah.
yeah.
We
Ask
can
them
have a
to-
repair process at the company's expense. Right. Item 8, finance. To receive and approve a list of payments totaling 76,378 made in November. 23, to receive the cash and investment reconciliation statement at 30th November 23, and to receive and consider the detailed income and expenditure statement for October, it says, but it means November 2023. Does anyone have any issues they wish to discuss in respect of this?
So I go back down to it again, because I need to check something's not on it. If it says it. You know which one I'm on about, don't you? BCC.
Yeah, sure.
See it. I'm just looking at,
I don't think it'll be on there if it hasn't gone through yet.
Rachel had put it through there, hadn't she? Because it was put through, wasn't it, to approval?
Yeah.
So in theory it should, but I don't know whether it comes off until it's finally approved. I don't
I
know.
don't think it goes on.
I
till
can't
it's
remember.
approved.
For the benefit of those who don't know what we're talking about.
There's an sorry, there's an invoice that's come in from Bristol City Council for 11,000 something pounds, which I'm contesting politely because there is no paper trail of where this has come from. It's not come through council that I'm aware of. So I'm at the moment refusing to authorise it because I want to see the paper trail.
What's the substance of
It's
this?
for the hanging baskets and stuff like that for Potted in Bloom. So I'm not against it. I have no issue with it because they do a wonderful job to clarify. But I need to follow the due process. At the moment, I'm not that due process, just signing it off at thelastminute.com. So I have a
May
couple.
need to go to council.
It may need to go to council in January just to go through a process because we have to follow due process. And I've asked the question, then it goes back to the bigger question is, has this gone through before?
Yeah.
I don't know is the answer because I genuinely can't remember, obviously. I just want to make sure that whatever happened in the past is where we can't change the past, but we can only change the future. So I want to make sure it's following the right path now. I can't see it on here, but
Well, there's Keith's gardening services, remove
No,
hanging
totally separate.
baskets, which is related to it, isn't
yeah,
it?
but this is BCC specifically.
So that's an additional sum then.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just taking the baskets down, is it? And £1,500. Sounds a lot of money to climb on the ladder. And
To be fair, and give you a bit of background on that one, he's the only one that will do it. When we've asked others to tender before and nobody bothered even responding. They're not interested.
Does this come under the general heading of floral displays,
Probably, yes.
for which we spent 13,000 odd up to November?
They do the watering.
Yeah.
That's really- The budget for it is pretty large.
The budget's 19. We spent just under 14 year to date. Last year was just under 19. And this invoice is for how much? 11,000.
11, isn't it? 11.
That's taken us way over the budget.
This
It's another reason why we've got to look
which
at
is why I'm
it.
contesting it. So it's in a holding pattern. It's not going anywhere. Wendy's on the case, so it's fine. It's got.
Okay.
I think
understood.
this is the issue that we've got with this one, and I don't think any of us for 1 minute, to be clear, are against paying this, but the costs have skyrocketed, and we have to control it because it's an immense amount of money that we're paying, and again, we have to justify why we're spending residents' money on. So we need to be clear about what we're spending, and if it means that we have to then go to council and ask for further budget, then so be it. It will then be down to the councillors to agree or disagree, but we have to follow the due process, and this is what I'm just trying to make sure that we're following. So, but yeah, sorry, I was a bit cryptic at the start. I apologise.
No, I don't see it in the air anywhere, Ben.
No, because I mean the floral display and watering is. I mean I think the watering is about 10-ish on its own, isn't it? Because
Yes.
his costs have gone up ridiculously,
Yeah.
and he genuinely is the only one that will do it. We've asked others, they're just not interested. And to be fair to the gentleman, him and his son, they do a fantastic job. And in the summer, they're out at silly o'clock in the morning, and if it's really hot, they're out several times a day doing it. So they have get it from the hydrants. So they have a meter, and he clocks it every time he does it. So it's recorded what he's saying.
Like at home.
You what?
He's literally got the big bows on the back of his van.
Yeah,
He's got
yeah.
a hose pipe topping it up overnight.
Yeah, but it's all metered. So yeah. David.
Can I ask a question about the music license for £2,000?
That's
Yeah,
for here.
That's for here.
We have to have a license for music, to play music.
David, they have you via the Shorten Curlies.
They do.
In Summit, I had no option because they came round banging on the door.
Who's they?
The public service, public broadcasting, I can't remember their official title, but you've either got to completely stop it or they'll get onto you.
So this should be covered by our hall fees. Because we, as a council, I don't think the hall has too many discos or. Yeah. Okay.
Can't play any music.
How do you
so-
see
But
it
it's the same
recharged
as the
to
other
people who rent the halls?
I don't know, John. I would have to have a look at that and see how.
There
How
is
much a fortune.
something called
Yeah.
POS income.
That's it, yeah.
Is there not a difference though between playing, say a band playing downstairs, as in band practice, and playing music? There's a very clear difference.
That's right.
So can we just clarify which one we fall under? Because if somebody's coming in and having a disco, then I think quite rightly so that the fee should be adjusted accordingly to make sure that it's £2,000 license. You could argue if you only got 5 groups doing it over the whole of the year, and we are here to spend the residents' money of this town wisely. Is this genuinely a wise way of spending the money?
It's a good point because 99% of the time the hall's not got music playing, is it? But
Generally
I
makes
don't
sense.
think you can pay it just as a one-off item. I think it's some fee which
You
is
have
just
to-
incurred
yeah.
throughout the year.
You do, yeah. It's a license you have to buy. Anyway, otherwise, no issues.
No issues. David, any other issues? Mike?
No,
With having issues, I therefore propose that they be accepted. Voting?
Happy to second it.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Sorry, I always missed out that step.
That's all 3, isn't it? Just for
All
clarity.
three taken as one
Yeah,
document.
that's fine. Happy to, sanction that.
Date of next meeting, the 20th of March next year. Seems a long way away.
It's just after full council. On the balance. Got to read the statements out now.
I'm just checking my diary to make sure that I know when the 24th of March is.
It's a weekday. It's a Wednesday according to this.
That's interesting. I've got it down as the 20th of March.
Yes.
Sorry, right. Okay. Right, exclusion of the public and the press. Under the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, members of the public and press are required to leave the meeting at item 11 due to the items being confidential matters. Brackets, sorry, hyphen, contractual staffing costs, confidential staffing matters and contractual obligations. Recommendation is that we exclude the public and the press. Proposed,
Yeah.
voted.